I'm sorry friends for the disruption that has been taking place, but I'm pretty sure now that this would be uninterruptedly going on. And I believe that when we are connected with one another, we shall be enjoying all through for an hour's time. Again, to reiterate what I was talking is that the language like English is being used to the maximum in the country like India. When I quoted that look at your watch and I read out TITAN, when I quoted when you look around yourself and see the hoardings of the shops, when I quoted when you are driving and looking at the back of the truck, we found everywhere written everything in English. Ironically, the language like English in India has got a lot more of interference of the regional tongue. And we always enjoy that because of one subtle reason, that interpretation of language, even with a touch of regionalism, is likely to add beauty the way we express in English. And hence, we need to understand that English as a standard language of the globe has become an important aspect of our life in India, and we have started using English the way we want, and we are the most impressionist user of the language English in the whole world. I tell you what are the exposition and how these mother tongue and regional dialects impact this language. When we move around Punjab, the scooter is in the stand and we move by rickshaw to the station. It is never scooter in the stand and station. Somehow or the other, when we move to Orissa, we all ride on the bus, not on the bus, because the regional dialect does not allow us to use BUS bus. On the contrary, in Orissa, we say we are riding on the bus. Although it's not possible, rather we cannot ride on our buses. Well, when we move to Bihar, and then the things become even more vulnerable when we say this is a watch and that was a boy. So ij and was is the mother tongue influence in Bihar. When we come to Gujarat, I am sorry to say this, that you can be invited to have some snakes in the hole. Do you realize what I wanted to say? That the regional language touch is always there while expressing the language. We cannot say in Gujarat the hall and the snacks. Somewhere the regional language interferes, and then we come to know that they are speaking about the hall and the snacks in their own language, English, hole and snakes. So we'll have to understand this, that the language like English is being used in its diversities throughout the country in India. But we don't have to worry about. We need to understand that the construction and the structure of the language of English is quite different from that of the structures we are using in our own country in different states. If you look at one important statement, or a kind of sentence rather, I teach grammar. I am teaching grammar. Now, I teach grammar has a structure subject plus verb plus object. But in India, in our own language like Hindi, I'll say मैं व्याकरण पढ़ाता हूँ. यहाँ पर structure has undergone a change, and now I teach grammar with a structure of subject verb object has turned out to become मैं व्याकरण पढ़ाता हूँ, subject, object and verb. And this prevails throughout the country in all the states of our own worthy country India. Everywhere. हूँ व्याकरण भणाऊँ छूँ. In Gujarati, if I am speaking. Ab Punjabi mein you can, I am not a linguist, I cannot use all the languages, but wherever you go and wherever you basically, find out the structure of the statement being used in our own language, being derived out of Devanagari script rather throughout the country, we have got a structure of subject, object, verb. And English always exists with subject plus verb plus object, SVO structure. So grammatically also the interference can be seen whenever we are using English in our own language. Now in South, when you go, you can find the people going to temple. People do not speak that we are going to temple. We are going to temple. Now this mother tongue interference can be seen everywhere, wherever you go in our own country. But this interference is beautiful because it accommodates the diversities of the languages in such a way that we are really termed as the people of a country with a lot more of diversities and still sustaining the unity. So India is a country of unity with diversity, and that is how even the language like English has been diversified in our own country, and in such a way that it has become a means of communication and help the people in understanding each other, even in lack of the knowledge of our own regional languages. When we move to South, probably we depend largely upon the use of English. When we move to other places where we do not know the languages, probably of that area, we take the help of this language, English, and then we try to accommodate with the communication that's going on. And this has been even otherwise accepted globally, that India is a country where the language like English also has got a diversified dynamic form, and it keeps on changing almost every day in life. There are certain, translated version of the use of language in our country. Normally, when we are trying to speak in English, we try to translate the valuable, parts of the things. Say, for example, if I have to say in Hindi, rather that principal baramda mein ghoom rahe hain. So when we try to translate it as per the meaning, then I would say the principal is rotating in the veranda. Now, घूमना शब्द रोटेशन से संपर्क में आकर के पूरे ट्रांसलेटेड वर्जन को अपने आप में एक ब्यूटीफुल एस्पेक्ट देता है. Although we laugh at that, still we say that let the window be open and the air come in. भाई विंडो खोलिए और हवा अंदर आने दीजिए. Right? It is very important for all of us that accent has got a different role to play with, and using the accent intonations and many other forms of the language probably would certainly change the scenario in our own country. But see, becoming a chaste speaker of English is somewhere difficult for all of us because of this kind of interferences that we have been observing for a long time. Now, if I have to say chair and table and pen and paper, probably that would not be acceptable in the country like India in most of the cases, unless and until we really pay a visit to the institute like FLU, where everybody is using the chaste English. It is almost the same as the people living in England and using English as their first language are not able to speak Hindi the way it is there. And I am pretty sure that we have to understand it in one or the other form, that languages, when are used properly in our own circumferences and in our own atmosphere environment, they are understood in a precise manner. No, sometimes we have to understand that there are a few words in our own country which we are using frequently, don't exist even in dictionary. I give an example of a word like biography. Now, biodata is not a word that's being found in dictionary. If you look into the dictionary, you can find resume, curriculum vitae, but biodata would not be found. Still, we have made it flexibly acceptable in our own language, and that is how we are using it in one or the other form. So grammar plays a vital role indeed, but at the same time the diversified dynamic language like L2 English has to be taken into the same, in the same form as it is existing in front of us. So today, when I am going to discuss with you the role of grammar, I would say that we need to look into our own childhood days. And being a teacher or being a parent even today, you can make the things beautiful for your kids around you. See, we have been taught several times that the name of a person, a place, a thing all the names are called nouns. Now my question is, whose name is childhood? When we define noun like this, then whose name is childhood? Probably nobody's, but still it's noun. So why not to make it a little easy for the other people to understand noun in the right perspective? So whatever we can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can touch, and we can feel are nouns. Now all these 5 sense organs are there competent enough to tell us about noun. And that is why, the group of words which is largest in grammar, that group of words is called noun. This noun is in the largest quantity available, and in lexical interpretations also we find the maximum being used in the dictionary. The second group of words that is found in grammar, second largest group of words, that we call verb. Now verbs are also in good quantity, but when the verb is being defined in the classroom situation or even otherwise, we sometimes find the children getting confused out of it. We want to simplify that. See, I always use this. I do not know whether you would agree or you don't, but I am pretty sure when you use it, it will become easy for you to take the things in order. Say, for example, whatever we do right since the morning till the end of the day, that is verb. Now, you can give this example to the children. You can tell them very categorically that you get up in the morning. Get up is a verb. You brush your teeth. Brushing is a verb, right? Then you get ready for school. Getting ready is a verb. You pick up your bag. Picking up is a verb, right? You take your breakfast. Taking breakfast is a verb. You walk to the bus stand. Walking is a verb. You board the bus. Boarding is a verb. You alight at school. Alighting is a verb. You move to the assembly ground. Moving is a verb. Whatever a child does since morning till the end of the day, and when he goes to bed in the night, all that are verbs. So we don't have to give them a definition of the verb, and basically if we quote such examples in the classrooms, probably the verbs would become easy for them, and children would also be enjoying getting it in the right perspective. And we have to be very careful in explaining the parts of speech to the children. I always say that if you want to use English in the right perspective, you need to master over grammar. But mastery on grammar are very, very difficult rather. And if it is difficult, what would be the real scenario? If mastery is not being done in a manner, now I believe that we have to be very much careful about understanding that how to use grammar in such a way that language becomes easy and interpretative. Now, why to and how to? Grammar in its form, as I said, has got a different role to play in making the language easy. And at the same time, when we interpret the language with correct grammar, probably the expressions also become easy to be understood. While we are discussing all these things today on live, I am pretty sure most of you are thinking how to use it in the classroom situations also. Now let us take up some examples. When we say about grammar, we have got beautiful auxiliary verbs. When we say auxiliary verbs, we need to understand the tenses and the use of auxiliary verbs in true senses. Now, in the present tense, we have got is, am, are, has, have, do, does to be used. In the past, we have to use was, were, did, had. And in future, we need to use will and shall. If we are capable of using these auxiliary verbs correctly in a sentence, the sentence structure cannot go wrong. And not only that, we can also be expressive in terms of tenses. Now, these auxiliary verbs are to be mastered over by all our children, and hence give them a table of present, past and future, and write down these auxiliary verbs properly so that they can understand it in a precise manner. I must tell you that the confidence of using auxiliary verbs itself will bring order in expressing the tenses. Now, tenses have a vital role to play. Every sentence that we speak has got a time and tense. When and how the actions are being taking place, that's being expressed when we express the tenses. So we have to by heart some of the rules brought forth in the classrooms or even at home in today's scenario. Dear parents, you can talk out to their children. Now, let me tell you that when we talk about tenses, it has got its structure. I have probably by-hearted those, and it becomes easy for me to talk. And I am pretty sure that all of you, if you by heart, can teach tenses in 20 minutes. And the languages can be there absolutely correct in the interpretations of language too, like English. Say, for example, subject plus V1 or V5 plus object. I teach grammar. Now, he teaches grammar. Now, here we have to understand that the subject is a noun or the pronoun. So, we need to take the children towards teaching them pronouns and their cases also, because subject is always either a noun or the cases of pronoun to begin with. Later on, it turns out to become complex when it goes in the latter stage of learning of grammar and the language. It keeps on improving and it keeps on basically giving you a lot of challenges. So when I say subject plus V1 or V5 plus object, that it is present simple tense. And then what keeps on changing, you will watch it in a few minutes. When I say subject plus is, am, are plus V4 plus object, it becomes present continuous. Now what is changing? Auxiliary verbs are changing, and simultaneously the uses. When we say uses, it's the use of grammatical items. USAGE is a word which is commonly misused by most of us rather. USES is uses and USAGE is usage, and usage means the grammar basically. So when we keep on auxiliary verbs and the kinds of verbs rather, the forms of verbs, we keep on changing the tenses. So I teach grammar and I am teaching grammar. Now again, what in the third stage? Subject plus has, have plus V3 plus object. Right? Now it comes to I have taught grammar. Now what is happening? First was there where we used V1 or V5, the present and the singular and the plural form of present verb, first form. In second, we used the fourth form of verb, we call it present participle. In the third, we are using the past participle form of verb with has and have. So what is happening? Every time we are using the auxiliary verbs, and the dynamism of the verbs are there as such that they are coming along with auxiliary verbs to complete sense, and they keep on changing. So teach grammar, I am teaching grammar, I have taught grammar, and I have been teaching grammar for the last 30 years. Or I have been teaching grammar since 1992. Now, when I say this, you must be basically, unfortunately, having a lot of query. Why for and since? Now, let us be very clear about the use of since and for. We make a mistake all the time while using a sentence with since and for. Now, since, a very simple way to understand it is like since is a form that can be used when we are mentioning the time in the watch or the date in the calendar. Nothing else. Say, for example, I am on live FB since 5 p.m. but it is almost 25 minutes, so I can say I have been on live FB for 25 minutes. So the period of time takes up for, whereas point in time takes up since. So the use of since and for also has to be rectified whenever we are using such sentences to teach our children. So what I was telling is that the use of auxiliary verbs along with the dynamic changes of the forms of verbs decide about the action being taken in a particular time. We call it time and tense. Let us see how quickly we can learn tense on live. So I teach grammar, subject plus V1, V2 plus object. I am teaching grammar, subject plus is MR plus V4 plus object. I have taught grammar, subject plus has have plus V3 plus object. And I have been teaching grammar for the last 30 years, subject plus has been, have been plus V4 plus object plus since and for plus anything, right? So these are the four structural pattern of teaching present tense. Now keep on changing, it would become past. Now V2, subject plus V2 plus object is a past tense. I taught grammar. I was teaching grammar, subject plus was where plus V4 plus object, right? Third, I had taught grammar. Has have will be converted into had, and that will change the entire scenario. The tense will undergo a change. I had been teaching grammar for the last 20 years. Now all these things we have to bear in our mind while teaching or while making any child understand the role of grammar in the use of language like L2. And I am pretty sure that all of us are quite well versed with the use of these nuances of grammar. Now coming to some other aspects of the grammatical roles, there are varieties of the group of words which play miracles, and sometimes without using the auxiliary verbs also they make senses. Examples of it that you can quote and you can always talk about. Let us see that the use of 4 content words create a beautiful picture of a paragraph. When we say content words, we need to understand what are these 4 content words. Nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs. Now these 4 are very important and they are frequently used to make the sentences beautiful. Say for example, if I tell you she is a beautiful girl. Now she is a girl. If I say it is girl is a noun in the sentence. Say a beautiful girl. Now here comes beautiful to qualify that girl, and that is an adjective. Now we say third sentence, she is a very beautiful girl. Now very is there further qualifying it, becoming adverb. Now 3 content words at the same time clubbed together a beautiful sentence. She is a very beautiful girl. Instead of saying she is a girl, she is a beautiful girl, we can say she is a very beautiful girl. Now what happens that an emphasis on all these content words create a lot more of importance for the language like English. And we need to keep on emphasizing on these particular words, the group of words in grammar, to make the language easy and beautiful to be understood by others. Maybe that while speaking we have got some slips. I am pretty sure that when I am speaking I might have got some slips, or maybe that I am not using the correct form of the grammar. But then we will try the most of the time to express ourselves with the correct form of grammar, and that is how we can improve our skills, as it was earlier talked on FB Live by Dr. Rafiq. And we are very sure that we have understood that the skills like reading, the skills like writing, the skills like speaking, and the skills like listening, all these 4 skills are very important for all of us. And if we develop these 4 skills, which are integrated rather, probably the learning of language too would not be a difficult task. So reaching out to the children at all stages, dear parents and dear teachers, we would like to emphasize upon one thing, that we have to make grammar an enjoyment and a pleasure in the classroom instead of making it a burden on the children. Say we go for the active and the passive form of interpretations. Let us talk about it. Now see, I give you a sentence which is a little funny rather, but you would be able to understand its nuances also when we try to convert such sentences into the passive form. My wife makes me chutney every morning. Now what are you able to understand with this sentence? Now there are 2. If I want you to probably convert it into the passive form, there would be 2 ways to passivize it. One would be that I am made chutney every morning by my wife, which is always possible for every one of us. And another is there that very categorically the chutney is made by my wife for me every morning. Now we have to understand this, that the use of grammar plays a vital role. We have to very correctly identify the direct and indirect object being used in a sentence to convert it into a passive form. Otherwise it will be a disaster. Say another disaster of grammar, I will tell you. A very beautiful sentence comes here. The student, under inverted comma, said the teacher, comma, again inverted comma begins, is a donkey. Okay. Now there is a role of punctuation symbol only that suggests that the student said the teacher, under inverted comma, is a donkey. Right? Now we change the scenario, and the comma inverted commas are likely to be changed. Now here comes the sentence. The student said, comma, under inverted comma, the teacher is a donkey. Now with the change of one comma and inverted comma in English, you change the entire scenario. We have to be very, very cautious in using the language and the punctuation in English to make the things beautiful. And not only beautiful, but clear and crystal to the minds of the learners. Learning of language probably is not dependent upon teaching of a teacher. Languages can be learned. I don't believe in this. My belief is that languages can be imbibed. What happens when a child takes birth in the family of a Punjabi? Does he go to any school to learn Punjabi? Probably not. When a child takes birth in the family of a Bengali, does he or she go to learn Bengali in any school initially? No, not at all. Then what's happening? The environment, the ambience, the talking people in the home itself are giving the child an environment to imbibe the language. And when he or she grows up to the age of 3, when he is more expressive, what happens? That he or she turns out to speak in the language being practiced in his family. This is how things go on. I am pretty sure that you must have been able to understand that the use of grammar in the language like English is playing a vital role. And with this vitality of role, rather, we would excel in expressing our feelings and emotions quite comfortably. It has been said throughout the world, rather, and we also accept it gracefully, that English is a global language and it is meant for just communication. This was one of the reasons why our, CBSE and British Council division way back in 1993 came out with an experimental approach when both the institutions say that, well, we need to make this language communicative. And the very first time in 1993, the communicative approach of teaching English was introduced in the country. And in that communicative approach, probably they also emphasized upon using those parameters which are necessarily required in terms of communicating in English. And a special emphasis was laid throughout the country in all the schools that teachers must devise something beautiful to be brought into the classroom, wherein learning of language does not become a burden for the children. And we did a lot, rather. We sat in a small room, rather, and we discussed about the materials to be produced, to be taken into the classroom in the form of a tape recorder. And then we, had a lot of fun in that when the listening task was basically monitored during that time in the classroom situations. And the children were very much excited to listen to that, double-side tapes. And sometimes it would go on fixing up over there, giving a different sound altogether. So all that fun that we have had probably was there for the only one sake, rather I would say, that every person has to understand that language too, or English, is a means of communication. Now, how to communicate, who to communicate with, where to communicate are certain important questions that arise into the minds of the people. Now let us understand this again, that how to communicate depends upon how much have you enriched yourself in your vocab. How to communicate depends upon how much have you been exposed to, listening to the language like English. I always, whenever I talk to my friends, my teachers, my colleagues, and my children, I always talk to them very categorically and tell them that you need not worry if a child is not using a correct sentence in the classroom. You need to worry that you are giving basically the inputs of the language precisely in the classroom. When you are using the language like English, you need to use it in the correct form. The precision and brevity of English also are to be taken into consideration. And this is how the learners also learn it in the right perspective. So we have to chart out certain plans to take the parts of speech of grammar in a sequential manner, starting from the noun pronoun, not necessary to maintain a sequence to teach the parts of speech to the children, but while using grammar, we come to know that this is how we can ensure a progress of learning of grammar in the classroom situation. So, you can have noun and then you can have verb straight away, you can go to adjective, you can go to conjunctions, interjections, you can come back to prepositions, and you can have your adverb in one or the other way. In all forms, the group of words which are being used in the book of grammar, these group of words play vital role. And beautifully, if the things are to be expressed, you need to have a backup of rather usable dictionary of not less than 500 words with you. And when I say 500 words, dear parents, dear teachers, as a user of English, it is a difficult task to carry the 500 usable dictionary with you, which you are using almost in your day-to-day life. It is very difficult, because if I ask any one of you sitting over there and watching me to give me 10 words in a minute, you would end up doing cat, bat, mat, hat, pat, not more than that. You would not be there in a position to use the content words in a large quantity. Why is it so? Because those things are not being basically piled up with us as a usable words dictionary throughout the life. Any postgraduate in this country who has really learned the language will have minimum 500 usable vocabulary in use of the language like English. And I am sure that all of us must try to improve ourselves in one or the other way. Harbour Press International is there at your service, and I am pretty sure that by talking to all of you, I am reaching out to your mind on behalf of Harbour Press, and with the products that we are having, we try the best of our level to ensure that the children at the helm of affairs of learning in their classrooms, especially English and other subjects, they get the right kind of materials and they get the right kind of support system from all of us to ensure that they have learned the things in a better manner. And this is how the role of grammar has got an importance in use of languages. Now, in the second half of our discussion, I would be taking you towards the language games. Now, how to make language convenient for the classroom? We can have a lot more of games, rather we can have more of dramatization. We can have a lot more of use of poems and songs in our classroom situation to make language easy and entertaining. Because language, I remember that whenever there were the series of classes going on, and we found that the series of classes were quite boring in the classroom situation for the children. These children waited wistfully by the end of the day to attend the class of English, because English probably makes you a little, what you call convenient, and this class does not burden you with a lot more of learning. So let us now come to the use of languages in a different form. And as I said, it's very important for all of us to incorporate in our teaching learning process some language games. Now, language games are those things which supply a reasonably realistic environment, and it is for the communication. Now, such games can be quite traditional also at times, and it can be played in a very non-contextualized form. For example, two teams are divided into the classroom and children are there on both the teams standing to get a cue card, and one child from one team reads out a cue card which is to be converted by the other child from the other group. Say, for example, a statement is given and another child has converted into a question mark. Say, when I say it is raining, and the other person is asking, is it raining? It is raining. Is it raining? Now, the statement, it is raining, is converted into a question. That kind of traditional and non-contextualized form of, language games can be introduced in the classroom situation. But how to make it more enjoyable and amusing in the classroom? We have to take another way which can be more realistic and which can be more or less what you call, untraditional and contextualized also. So when we take this up, it's an amusing way. We say that a member of one team makes a statement, and a member of the other team, the opposite team, he contradicts. And when he contradicts, he is very unpleasant and he is argumentative. And he at once, disagrees with what the first person from the other group has said. Say, for example, first one is saying that, well, I am feeling tired. And the second student from the opposite side says, are you really feeling tired? Or are you just lazy? Now look at this. The statement which has been given by the second child is a question mark, but it is amusing. Rather, it's an argument going on and a contradiction is coming up with the teaching of conversion of statement from a statement to the question mark, when we call it interrogative sentence. So such kind of games can be played. The first person can say, well, it's raining. And the second person can say, is it really raining? Or someone has watered some flowers on the balcony above us. Now look at this. The contradiction that is coming up from the second child is a disagreement. So we are teaching both the groups the agreement and disagreement to a particular statement, and by and large people are also learning how to use a statement into an interrogative form. So conversion of a statement into interrogative can be one of the games which can highly be acceptable in the classroom by the children, and then the thinking skill will develop and they will start thinking more and more of contradictory statements to be converted and to be brought forth to use it in the form of a question. So this kind of game can be there. It is possible to start games from the earliest stages of language learning, and one can use them at the higher level as well. But for higher level we have to be a little careful, because children are not very happy using the languages and following the instructions in the classroom unless they are interested to. So another very simple game, a visible set of picture that the teacher should have, and at the same time we can have that teacher makes a statement and the student has to point to or find out the picture which illustrates what the teacher has said. Say for example, the teacher says this is a tree, and the student has to find out the picture of a tree from that particular flashcard. At a higher level rather, the teacher can make more complicated statement. Say for example, the teacher says the cat has 2 white feet and 2 black feet. Or the teacher can say the horse is running to a gate. Now what's happening? These are the complex sentences which would make the students realize that, well, these complexities of the sentences can be found out in different form in the flashcards being made. So what is happening, that we are basically helping the children to learn the language through the games being played inside. Now the same picture can be used to practice speaking skills. When we say about language games, the same picture all of us can use in the classrooms, and they can practice the speaking skills also. Say for example, the teacher shows the pictures and the students have to give the corresponding statements. The teacher shows a picture of a man driving a car. Now what will happen? A child will say the man is driving a car. There is a possibility of getting confused. If the statements which are available with another statement, say for example, the man is diving or the man is driving, the child has to be more careful in finding out that statement. There is a possibility that out of the curiosity and in a hurry, a child selects one particular sentence which is wrong, and he or she may communicate it wrongly also. So I am showing the picture of a man driving a car, and the child may say in a hurry, the man is diving. So man is not diving, man is basically driving. So that kind of confusion in the statements can be created, and games can carry on in the classroom situation. This is how the language games can be taken up for the learning of language in the classroom, dear friends. And I am pretty sure that all of us watching today would be using it on online teaching classes as well, because in online teaching classes we have got the children to play these games. It is all up to us how to control them, divide them into groups, and then allow them to play these language games in order to understand the nuances of languages in the right perspective. Now let us come to dramatization. It has been said by P. Ganesha way back in the Hindu. One of the articles was written by one of the elite writers, and he said that you need to be a juggler and a dramatist in the classroom for teachers. True it is. Unless you play a drama in the classroom, children would not be attracted towards you. And playing a drama is a beautiful skill of learning languages. Now how to dramatize? There are various forms of drama. I would speak to you about a mime rather. We are in today's scenario, children do play dumb charades, and I do not know, I have not played it, and yes, I believe that is one of the best things to be utilized in the classroom for making the people learn language easily. Dramatization through mime is one aspect of learning language in the classroom. How this can be done? Pupils can use mime to demonstrate comprehension of what they have heard or read. And at a very elementary stage, if you realize, dear teachers and dear parents, what do we use? We use the, mime rather when we give an instruction to the child. When we say stand up, without speaking anything, the child stands up. When I say sit down, without speaking anything, the child sits down. So what is he doing? He is miming rather. He is playing the drama on our instructions. We call them and we say, put your hands on your heads. So they put their hands on their heads. So what are they doing? They are dramatizing in the classroom. No, we have to be very careful in using these skills in the classroom and allowing the children to participate in that. So mime is one part wherein all the class can participate, and they can understand by carrying out these actions in the classroom itself silently. At a more advanced level, one can get the pupils to respond to such what you call utterances. Say for example, if I say, if I knock at the table, all of you will stand up. So when I knocked at the table, what happened? Everybody stood up. So that was one instruction given, and the dramatization in the classroom went on with the language input. But the second time, when I use it in the past tense, probably at the latter stage, children would understand it in a better way. Say for example, if I say, if I had knocked on the table, you would have stood up. Now this time nobody stands up because they have understood. The teacher is speaking in the past tense. If I knock at the table, you would stand up, and then everybody would stand with a knock. But when I speak out that if I had knocked at the table, you would have stood up, that's in the past tense. So that at the latter stage of life, when the children start growing, now they understand the language inputs properly and they respond to it in the same manner. And mime can also be used as a stimulus for speech and writing. One pupil mimes an activity, like he mimes like swimming. Now other children say he is swimming. A statement comes out from the children's side. A child is now playing a tennis. He mimes as if he is playing a tennis. What will happen? All other children would speak out a sentence. He is playing tennis, or he is playing badminton. Whatever the mime that's being exhibited in the classroom can basically allow the children to learn the language also. So language games are always important. Along with that, dramatization is another aspect of learning the language in the classroom situation. Look at this, when the drama gets the speech all together, what happens? The fun is that action accompanied by a speech is much more useful than miming. What happens here? It can bring the world outside into the classroom. Say we can bring the clerks and the customers of a post office in the classroom. Two children can be made, one clerk and the customer, and the dialogues are being talked, dramatization. We call it a role play. Customs inspectors and the passengers on the airport can be brought into the classroom. And here also we can basically dramatize the things in the classroom for the language inputs. A lot more of languages are being used there. Now this becomes a little difficult when we talk about the adolescent and the teenagers, young adults. Basically they are more self-conscious, and they are a little introvert also. So unless and until they are extroverts, such kinds of dramatization in the classrooms do not take place. But at the what you call earlier stage of children, when they are very small, they don't have the self-consciousness and they enjoy pretending a lot. So we can use it at the earlier stage to help them imbibe the language in the right perspective, and we can drill it in a particular structure by dramatization in the classroom itself. And when we dramatize in the classroom and drill it in a particular structure, we can emphasize upon the use of vocabulary, the use of sentences, the use of those content words. We can make the work realistic and at the same time situational by means of using drama in the classroom. So we can also teach all the children the English gestures. Say for example, this is an English gesture. I don't know. Now, we do not say in India, I don't know, shrugging our shoulder. But the gesture of English is there, I don't know. Well, so what happens that such kind of gestures can be taught in the classroom through English. And somehow or the other, we find that often it is different from those of speakers of other languages. When these things are learnt by the people, the gestures of the English people, the people living in England or other places beyond our boundary, probably that helps us to have an edge over the speakers of other languages. And not only this, there is the written script and the dialogues which can be used as the tools rather. The written scripts can be handed over to the children to be read out properly, and the dialogues can be delivered. This is how dramatization, with the help of the speech and actions both, become more and more prominent in the classroom instead of just teaching them a particular language in a class. I think all of us should adopt a methodology of evolving certain technologies, strategies in the classroom which can help the children to get automatically involved and attracted towards the things taking place in the classroom situation. So this is how we can plan out. Initially the children would read the part of those scripts and the dialogue, and later on they would by heart that, and then they will start it. This is how all of us prepare our children to present anything on the annual day function when they deliver the dialogues. Now the trend has already undergone a sea change in the schools, that we have those earlier radio taped or audios basically recorded to be played, on which the mimes going on. But I believe that all of us need to understand that in earlier days children used to by heart those dialogues and the sentences structures to be presented on the stage, and they did a miraculous job in expressing their emotions there. So that's the dramatization, and every child should learn language through this dramatization to a large extent. So dear friends, now I'll be proceeding towards poems, because the use of poems also is an important factor in learning the language. But most of the time we confuse, and we basically say that poems are to be read out. I'm sorry, poems are to be enjoyed, they are not to be read out. Basically they are to be read out in rhythm and enjoyed and understood in a flow, because the terminologies used in the poems might be archaic at one point of time, poetic in tune, or may not be found exclusively in the dictionary. So we'll have to be very, very much careful that poems are to be read out in such a manner that it adds rhythm and pleasure to the children. At the very first stage of introducing poem in the classroom, dear friends, we need to read it out in a rhythmic form, as we usually do it in our preschool time. Right? We always sing a song and a poem rather. Now the poem and songs, both are there very close to each other when we are taking these two tools in the classrooms to introduce language. And from there also some of the words, some of the statements of English are imbibed by the children categorically. And see, when we use a poem in a nice manner, it yields out a lot more of pleasure. What happens, it also gives an aesthetic sense to the children. See, Howard Gardner's theory we have been talking about for a long time, rather, that there are 8 faculties, that 8 intelligences are to be taken care of, and one of them is an aesthetic intelligence rather. And the idea of aesthetic intelligence is that every child should learn to appreciate the things around the world. And that appreciation would come when the poems are properly read out in a rhythmic form in the classroom situation. So we have to take up poems as one of the tools of the language learning. Along with that, the songs. In an intensive learning situation, when we are tied up with many things, dear friends, songs are rejuvenating. But what kind of songs do we have to listen to is more important. In today's scenario, probably we don't have the lyricists in a right manner to make us feel a little happy about the things. The lyricists are not writing the poems in the right order. The lyricists are not writing the songs in the right order. It's not being sung in a proper manner. The rhythm is missing out. Rather, the music being added is something beyond our understanding at times. Rather, it was said by one of my friends that the music that you listen to and when you shake your head, that is quite classical, right? And when you start shaking your waist, that means it is pop. It is rather little modern and advanced. But when you shake your leg and tap your leg, that is pop and modern. But when you shake anything and everything, probably what is that is not known to us. So when we try to listen to a song and when we really get ourselves involved into that seriously, that changes our thought process as well. So some of the chosen songs can be taken into the classroom that can help the children imbibe the language in the right manner, and they would also be very happy to listen to that and use it. See, you must have realized that all of us are very good at by hearting and singing the song, listening to that, and children also do that in a very large quantity. You can find children by hearting the songs and singing them. And